Hello? You live? You here? Um, should be here. Ah, here we go. Holidays. It's been a while since I've done this particular setup. uh, yeah. It's I'm here. I'm live, and today I'm doing something a little bit different, as you may have noticed by the title and the stuff, all the information. So I used to do like these writing streams, but the setup I used to have was not ideal. Like, I don't know, the vibe of them just wasn't what I wanted for this kind of thing. So I've decided to change how I do them to see if that's more comfortable for me and everybody else who may or may not be involved. So I'm going to be playing a game while I just talk about some general talking points and stuff about writing. I'm open to questions. I'm here to just kind of chill. It's just a chill stream where I talk about my book stuff and I'll play a card game. That sound cool to everybody? Okay. Let's go. Hope this works. Should be... yeah. Anyway, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. This is card game. You play game with cards and I'm open to like questions or stuff. And if I need to adjust volume and stuff, you have to let me know because I cannot tell with my setup being the way it is. So anyway, let's do you. Just to get into. Okay, I'll see if I can adjust volume. Everything's falling apart. This is fine. I'm not panicking. Let's turn this down. Okay. Onwards. So, yeah. This is card game. Okay. Deep breaths. So, anyway, as I've talked about some of the stuff before, but I read books. I read fantasy novels, and I wanted to talk about them because they make me happy. I have my phone set up with my stream so I can read chat because that's the only way I would be able to read chat with this setup, and everything is just not working for some reason. Cooperate with me. Technical difficulties. What is beautiful? Gosh, why are you about this? Oh, that's worse somehow. I'm sorry if you're saying something because I'm not. It's okay. Why is it not letting me see chat? Why does the universe hate me? I'm gonna have to reset something. Let's try it like this. Towers is bad at this. But she's trying. Okay. That's not, I don't think that's helping. Nope, this is not helping. Let's go here. I'm so sorry. Was better? I think this is better. Can somebody type in something in chat so I can test this to make sure this is working properly? Okay. Okay, yay! Thank you, Billy. Yes, this is working now. Cool. So, yeah. I'm torn if I want to start talking about book 2 stuff or if I should do some kind of recap of some of the stuff I talked about in older streams. Because those are no longer available to be seen anywhere. For reasons. I mean, the way I used to do these streams is I had the books and stuff open on screen. And then I would read them aloud and then talk to... You know, this is a game that's on mobile, but it's currently running on my computer. Because I can, and I don't. It's fine. This is my preferred way to play this game. Because attempting to play this game physically nowadays is not fun. So, yeah, let's see. Where do I want to start? Have docking points. Should probably use them. And I apologize, some of this stuff is probably not going to make a whole lot of sense if you haven't read books or if you haven't, like... But mostly this is just a testing to see if I'm more comfortable with this format than I was with the old format. Because the old format just kind of stressed me out too much. So I decided for my own mental well-being and sanity to do it differently. So, yeah, I guess I'll start at the beginnings. So, first book, Towers of Nine, which is obviously my username and all that stuff. It's fine, Billy. I'm just, like I said, at this point, this is mostly just a test to kind of re-get my bearings as I try to figure out what exactly I want to do with this channel long term. Because, I mean, I don't mind gaming, but that's not really what I want to do with it. I'd love to do more book stuff, so it's what we're trying. If mentally chill out for 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, book 1. Episodes 1 through 36 on the serial, and where we meet pretty much everyone who really matters at this point. That's been out. It's funny, the book 1's almost been out for... Well, it's been out for over a year at this point. And I don't even remember where I left off with, like, the analysis of before. So let's just... I don't know. Okay. Screw it. I'll talk about books 2 stuff. Because it's my stream and I'll do what I want. So, for those of you who have read book 2, this is mostly aimed there. And there was some stuff I couldn't talk about during the book 1 streams because they were spoilery for book 2, but since book 2 is now out, I can talk about it as freely as I want because my rules, I do what I want. I think one of my favorite tidbits is the origins of one of the characters' last names. And that character is Vivian Hearth. Her last name is... Bye, Billy. It's fine. I chose Hearth because I wanted a name that was associated with the idea of home and the idea of fire. Given that the Hearth Coven is connected to Malkarg and has fire magic, and the idea of Seraphita, meeting the Hearth Coven is kind of a homecoming. If not for her, then at least for her mother. So that's why the Hearths are named what they are. Yeah, it's just fun tidbits. I like fun tidbits. Which is mostly what I have here is just... Just gonna set it to auto while I try to organize my thoughts over here, because I have stacks of the books next to me. Both my Tower of Memories books and my Journals of Fire books, because I like all my books. I mean, if I didn't like them, I wouldn't have written them. Although the story behind Journals of Fire has been more complicated than the story behind how Tower of Memories came into being. See, next talking point I have here. So, yeah, the general structure of these will kind of be kind of podcasty. And if I ever feel like having guests, I may do that. We'll see. It really depends on who wants to join in. One side character I have that I really like, but also am going to torment, probably for her entire existence in the story, is Angelina Farsi. Because, I mean, yeah, she's the happy friend of the joyful little pixie. Well, pixie student. She's also, sees the future. And there's a certain level of innate tragedy to seeing the future, I think. To knowing that bad things were coming for her and her friends, but she can't really do anything about it. Especially since she doesn't know specifics. I mean, her visions are pretty vague. And she does finally detail one for us in book 2. When she comments on some things she saw before the school year began. And the reason I do that is because I think it kind of helps explain why she doesn't, try to do more to stop certain events that have happened / will happen. Because, I mean, realistically speaking, the series is still in its infancy, so there's a lot of bad things still to happen. Lots of things still on the table. But, just because something bad's gonna happen doesn't mean you can stop it. Especially when the best information you have is that... Because Angelina's actual vision of the really bad thing that's most immediate on the horizon is a shaking coffin. Now, obviously, I know what it means, and I suspect at least smart readers will be able to probably figure it out to an extent. Since this is a world with undeath in it. And also I put a frickin' magical knife that when you kill people with the knife, they turn into an undead monster. So, imagine... The intention is that most people will put 2 and 2 together. Like, oh yeah, Towers is gonna stab somebody with the knife. Well, okay. I'm not gonna do the stabbing, someone else is gonna do the stabbing. But anyway, the point still stands. Somebody's getting stabbed, and something bad's gonna happen. Angelina's already seen it. Which is why some of the songs in her playlist are what they are. Like, some of them are just like, yay, happy, which suits her personality. Some of them are like, yikes, I'm scared. Get out of my chat. Who are you? Piss off. Hang on. hate that I can't set this to auto for a sec. There's my chat. Why can I not ban people from this screen? I should be allowed to. It's very rude. That's not what I wanted to do. That's annoying. Nothing I can do for it now. And that went my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, right. Angelina and her playlists. We have basically the first couple of songs, which are just like lighthearted Disney songs that I would play, but I also don't want to get spammed by copyright bots and smack this thing down, because that's not fun. But I think the two that kind of inspired the tragedy of Angelina's character the most are Everything Goes On and probably the Gwen thing? Maybe? I don't know. The vibes are there, which is all that really is the point of a playlist. So just be, here's 30 minutes of this character's vibes. I have a lot of playlists. Probably too many. But they make me happy. They help me kind of focus in when I have a specific idea or thought or character that comes into an episode. You know, it's funny. It's well, not funny, but it's interesting to think about alternate universe versions of the story. Because some stories, it's hard to pick POV, right? Like, whose eyes am I going to use to tell this story? If I'm going to use any eyes, or if I'm going to step outside everyone's heads and view everybody like a movie camera or something. But no, this one was always going to be first person. There was never a version of this where I was like, I'll do this in third. I'm like, no. Serafina was always going to be our primary, our only source of information about this world and these events. I mean, yeah, I cheat a little bit with how Dragon Tower works to show us scenes that happen when Serafina's not in the room. But I like the limitations on it enough that even though it does let me cheat a little bit, it also has so many limitations that it's not a big deal. Especially since enough of the characters know about those limitations that if they do have something that they really don't want Serafina to ever find out about, like, they know. They know that Dragon Tower is the worst place to gossip if you don't want to get caught. I mean, I don't know. Well, I do know. I'm the freaking author. I know everything. Mostly. Some things are still unknowns to me. But, you know. Like, look, here's the thing, right? Serafina has secrets. She keeps secrets. She keeps secrets from the other characters, and she keeps secrets from me. So, we'll find them out together. What's the next talking point I have? American. Ugh. Daddy McBad guy. World's least likely person to win a Dad of the Year mug or a Grandpa of the Year mug. American, I think, works as much as he does, or at least works so far in that it makes thing about American is, when I first conceived of this story, I had a thought in the back of my mind of, could you tell a fantasy story like this and not have a true central antagonist? At least as far as, like, here's like the one bad guy, like if you get rid of him you solve all of the problems kind of dude. And I would argue that, at least in the first book, it works. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it'll stay that way for the whole series, though. Especially since American exists. Because to me, a lot of the issue I have with a lot of, like, big antagonists for fantasy series is you have this, generally speaking, the formula is you have this person who comes from basically nothing, right? We all, if you read fantasy a lot, then you know the stereotype, right? The farm boy who's just going about his day, and then poof, some either magical object or person or thing shows up at his doorstep, and now he has to go save the world, even though he's like the least qualified person alive to go do that. And in some stories, that's literally the point. Looking at you, Lord of the Rings, is that they're not that extraordinary. Yeah, beyond maybe, like, or at least as far as, like, the physical sense of being extraordinary, I guess, would be more fair. Like the plainness of Frodo is kind of the point. But when you have, you know, this nobody defeat a big bad, you run the risk of the big bad not seeming all that bad. So you kind of have to figure out. So it's a tricky balancing act, right? Especially in series like Tower of Memories that are going to be multi-book, right? Because this first year is going to be 7 books. And while I'm probably going to do the other years, I'm not going to comment on how many books those years are going to take. Because if I think too hard about it, my brain will explode. And Seraphina is 15, and she's cast all of 2.5 spells at this point in the story. If she defeats the big bad now, you'll never take him seriously. Which is the point. So having a more subtle threat going on, acting as, like, the main baddie's, like, avatar throughout the story to kind of both answer the question of why is Seraphina the one who has to do something about the situation, versus, you know, keeping him an actual threat or a danger. And I think they answered that question. I feel like I'm happy with how I've tackled the problem so far. Because here's the thing, for him to be so morally bankrupt as to place something like the curse on Lucinda, knowing what it was going to do to both to Lucinda's potential children, because that's how it works, right? Is it's a generational curse. Meaning you place it on one generation, but it ends up affecting future ones. I want to be clear on this because I don't think there's ever going to be a way to naturally put this in the story. Is that the curse would have affected any potential child of Lucinda as long as they had a human dad. Like, as long as the bio dad was human and it was Lucinda's, it was gonna come out cursed. Like, if Seraphina had siblings, they'd all be cursed in exactly the same way. But she doesn't. That wasn't... I mean, that was my choice, ultimately. But it felt neutral for their family to only be a one-child household, if that makes sense. But, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, it's the thing about storytelling, right? Is that everything is a balancing act. You lean a little harder on X, but you give up page space for Y. Because even though, like, oh, it's a book, don't you have infinite space? Like, yeah, not really, though. Because I gotta keep in mind the pacing. And sure, I could bog this thing down with anything and everything, and one could argue that the pace of this is already too slow, depending on people's preferences. But I mean, that's the point. The Seraphine is not Frodo. This isn't a hero's journey. This is a slice of life story with magic. Because that's what I wanted to write, so that's what I wrote. Although it wasn't really the plan. I didn't really have a plan. I was just like, I'm just gonna start writing a story with spooky haunted house vibes, and we're just gonna go from there. And it's, evolved. Tower of Memories Digivolve 2, a multi-book series. Because that's how it works. At least that's how this worked out. Because Journals of Fire was not coming together as I would have liked. But, stuff happens. Life happens. Everyone's name is kind of funny. Because... So Vivian as a name means, like, light and life and stuff. Whereas Maripin literally means the opposite. Which was intentional, right? Because they do kind of go together. Because, I mean, they're exes. They're ex-spouses. They got divorced and they had a kid together. So, obviously that has its own, like, situation. That's how it be. So, and honestly, Vivian's conflict around him is probably one of my favorite parts about her character overall. Because you have to think about it like this, right? Vivian did literally everything exactly the way her society wanted her to. Like, every expectation that was had of her by the world in which she inhabits. Like, she lived what on paper was, like, exactly the expected life of someone in her position. Only for it to essentially blow up in her face. Which probably, at least as far from my perspective, deeply affected how she ended up raising both of her daughters, really. Because, I mean, how could something like that not affect your worldview? To do everything right but get punished for it anyway? That's just part of everything. It's one more piece of the puzzle, one more thing that kind of drives her forward. He's an awful person. Let's just be clear. From the beginning, he was always an awful person. She just didn't notice because, well, I mean, he was a stranger. It wasn't like it wasn't a love marriage. It was basically political from the beginning. It was a political arranged thing. She was just like, yeah, okay, I'll go along with this because it gets me what I want, and what she wanted was to start a family. And obviously, getting a husband was the fastest, most efficient way to achieve that goal. Especially if her family approved of that husband. But, turns out marrying a stranger's not a good idea. Oh, for the love of... I like this game, but sometimes it crashes on me. Which is not fun. Actually, I'm gonna take this opportunity to kind of... ban. Because it was irritating me to have it on screen anyway. Let's try this again. But first, I'm getting a glass of water. I will be right back. Okay. Okay, I'm back. Let's restart this. Hopefully this should work out. Yeah, cool. Yay, everything's working. I didn't break anything by walking away for 5 seconds. Yeah, I think that's everything I have to say on American as a character at this point. Well, I mean, he's not really a character. He's more of a force. He just exists somewhere out there in the world. Who's somewhere, rotting in a prison cell, supposedly. Hopefully. Although I get the distinct impression he's probably not going to stay there forever. I mean, we'll see. We'll see if he causes more problems other than it's just the origin point of the curse. I mean, probably, but still. Okay. Now Towers gets to move on to probably one of her favorite plot points in Tower of Memories, at least in this first year. Because this kind of stuff makes me happy. Is the fact that, you know, I'm just gonna say it, Red's death. Oh boy, Red's death. Red's death scene. That's a scene that's been baked into the DNA of the story from basically day one. Like, that was one of those very early, like, oh yeah, this scene's gonna happen. Like, and it played out on page almost exactly as I first envisioned it. Like, the idea of, you know, footprints appearing on their own that are bloody and handprints on walls. You know, which is perhaps a bit grotesque, but, like, that's kind of the point. Is that it's gruesome. It's as fine as Tower Memories is sometimes, it is a story where bad things are gonna happen. And Red's death, to me, has always been such a critical part of, you know, both the overall plot and just the way the story was always meant to unfold. Because I would say Red is arguably more important as a kid. Well, no, that's not true. As important of a character as Seraphina is. At least as far as, like, the actual, like, bones of the plot. And I can't talk about some of the specifics because spoilers. But yeah, the gruesome fate of Red is something I'm excited that we finally have on page and that people can read and formulate theories on. And I can just kind of sit back and giggle. As people are like, oh no! Yeah. Let's skip that talking point. Episode 68. Yeah, that was a fun one. Because the purpose of episode 68 was always to answer a very important question definitively. Because it does kind of tie into the Red stuff, but 68's purpose was always to answer definitively how the echoes work. And just their general, like, how any of this works, really. Because understanding the echoes is really going to be critical moving forward. Right? Because now that they're actually in Dragon Tower and they see echoes every day, it's a big deal. It's a pretty big deal that everybody understands how everything works. I mean, it's there aren't a lot of episodes like that exist solely to answer critical questions, but it's fun to give answers to questions, because I think that if all you do is ask questions, people are going to get bored especially once they realize that you don't intend to answer them. Right? At least that's my personal thought process. Like, it would be easy for me to just be like, well, you're never gonna get answers and you just have to think about it. But, I don't know, I think those kind of stories are boring to have to sit through and not that interesting long term. I mean, I don't mind cliffhangers, because cliffhangers can be fun. It's it's when you do nothing but pose questions, you do have to eventually give answers. And the longer you draw out the questions, the more satisfying the answers have to be. So, I mean, it's like I said before, everything's about balance in storytelling, I find. What else is on here? Oh, the Metallica album. Uh, Master of Puppets or Metallica. It's That's an Easter egg. That's an Easter egg that's gonna be a lot of fun later. I can't really talk about it. Just know that yes, it's a song that I chose very, very deliberately. Very much on purpose. So if you're unfamiliar with the song, you probably should give it a listen. Although I will say it has very little to do with, like, the intended interpretation of the song, if that makes sense. Because there is, like, an official interpretation, but why I picked it has nothing to do with that. It's got stuff to do with other things that I'm not talking about. Hold on. I have a list here. I don't know what I'm doing. Let's see. Wraith. Scarred Wraith. That's Speaking of antagonistic forces, it's very spooky. So, I should probably go over what is a wraith in the Tower of Memories world, because it's a little bit different from, like, a expected wraith, like a normal one, like from its origins. So, how do I articulate this? A star wraith is obviously deeply connected to Red, as they obey the same rules. Like, the rules that apply to Red also apply to the Wraith, which is kind of its point. And some of the speculation about the Wraith is pretty important to the story moving forward. So keeping an eye on that then is pretty big deal. And me keeping track of it's also a big deal. But it is what it is. Speaking of the Wraith, Death's Echo. That knife. That knife. So, again, for those unfamiliar, Death's Echo is the knife that was enchanted by Jantrist Feared, which is the necromancer that helped found the school. So kind of an important historical object. And its history is kind of complicated. So how the knife works, and I kind of talked about this before, but basically it's a knife. You stab people with it, and if they die, they turn into wraiths, and they turn into undead creatures, and if you know a bit of necromancy, you can control them pretty easily. That's his purpose. That's what he used it for in life. Granted, once he decided, once him and his friends are like, let's found a school, he kind of put it away for a while, and it ended up in a museum for many, many, many years. Ultimately, which is where it got to where it is now. But, you know, just because it's been in a museum, that doesn't mean people haven't used it to hurt people since Dangerous's times. But, you know. I would say explain this. Yeah. Let's say we'll see more of that tonight and more of what it can do. It's probably been the one thing in this story that was the hardest to name. Somehow. Not sure how it happened. But naming weapons is actually ridiculously hard. At least it was for me, and as far as Death's Echo was concerned, because I mean, initially I wanted to call it like Dangerous's something, right? But no, I couldn't think of any like good names for it that worked for what I wanted. So ultimately, so after some discussion with some other author friends on Twitter, I ultimately decided to settle on Death's Echo because I chose that name because I wanted a name that kind of implied its connections, right? Death's Echo's connections to Dangerous and to Dragon Tower are its biggest functions in the story. There's nothing like the fact that it's Dangerous's knife and that it glows the same color blue as Dragon Tower echoes is a pretty big freaking deal, as one might imagine. Because that basically confirms that, yeah, Dangerous had a potentially bigger effect on how Dragon Tower works than perhaps we may have thought. But I mean, it's all just adding to mysteries upon mysteries and all that stuff. Fun times. And also, I think its name is kind of a pun because, like Dragon Tower has echoes of people who used to walk around. Like, of its former students that walk around, you could argue that an undead creature like a wraith is kind of an echo of its own, of you know, the person that it was before. Not that a lot of humanity remains in a person after they become a wraith. Actually, basically zero, as far as Tower Memories is concerned. Like, if someone gets turned into a wraith, that's it. They're gone. Whoever they used to be, they no longer are. Any semblance of the human being, of the person they were, is gone forever. They are dead. Like, when you die, become an undead monster, there's no coming back. You are dead forever. If your body is being puppeteered by a terrible person. It's a fantasy story. Not everything's gonna be happy. What else can happen here? No, I'm not happy. I mean, it could, but meh. Let's see. What other episodes are fun to talk about? You know, one idea I had originally that ended up having to get scrapped due to just how things ended up was I wanted to be episode 69 to be the one where we talk about Seraphina's, we'll call it lack of interest in dating and boys and stuff. Like, if you ask Seraphina if she's interested in kissing anybody, her response would be some variation of ew, gross. Which I think is fun. Hmm. I think my favorite episode that I wrote for what is book 2 is probably honestly, if I'm allowed to be honest, probably episode 45 where Red dies. Because Towers is a mean author who takes a certain amount of joy in tormenting her characters. But to be fair, I'm not nearly as bad as others. Like, as bad as some of the things that happen in Tower of Memories, it's nowhere near a grimdark story. Even when stuff happens that is not fun. Oh, I have to talk about. So, yeah, the very first episode, too, also kind of ended up happening almost exactly like I imagined, to a degree, or at least the events within that episode happened pretty much as I imagined them from the beginning. Because there was an idea once upon a time before I started on what is now book 2, was that Jarek was gonna poison everybody with True Serum on their first few hours within Dragon Towers. But that didn't end up happening. Because originally, it was tied to the fact that Seraphina opened Dragon Tower by herself in the initial initial concepts for this. And obviously, we got a way different version of that scene. It's resulted in their first night being way different because everybody saw that something weird went down. So when she, said her story about ghosts and stuff, it was like, I mean, maybe something weird happened, clearly. Like, we all saw that. So there was less doubt, I would say, around her little story. Although they didn't fully understand it. So, yeah, the sand scene was fun to write. And I was really excited to get to it because, and then you have Russell who finally gets to have a seance, which I promised all those chapters ago, right? And he was just like, finally, I get to have my little seance because I've been practicing necromancy because I'm a weirdo. It's okay. That's why you're in Dragon Tower. And then you have Red show up and decides to mess with them a little bit. Because she can talk, right? She just only talks. It's just her and Seraphina. So she's like, they have a thing here. I'm gonna mess with it. I'm gonna mess with them. Although whether or not any of what she said was true is, up for debate. Because, technically speaking, that even though she's like, yeah, you guys are alone in here, it is still true. I mean, physically at least. Not that we know what's going on with that. Well, I do, obviously. You don't. Teehee. I know. I just love how it came out. What else? Council, the student council, the representative council. That was not an initially planned plot point, but I was like, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna put Seraphina on it, because that's gonna be funny. So I mean, because there's something innately funny about having this like very antisocial, like I don't like people kind of person, like now in charge of people and now has to talk to a bunch of different people from, all the different towers because I'm terrible and I like torturing her. It's tormenting Seraphina for my amusement, because tormenting Seraphina causes me amusement. And I mean, the story does have lots of readers and people who enjoy this, so clearly I'm not the only one who takes some amount of glee in Seraphina's misery. I like how I like the role they play in the story, I think. And yeah, some of them are going to be more impactful than others. Admittedly, some of them are just kind of filler characters who exist because it makes too much sense in the world for somebody to be filling this role for them to not exist. But I mean, it's that's the thing, right? Not every character is gonna be super important to the story. Some people are just gonna exist because just for the sake of the world building. But I mean, that's still a perfectly valid reason for them to exist, in my opinion. Because here's the thing, right? Not everything in a story needs to be in direct service of the plot. Some things can exist and should exist for the simple sake of world building or character building, or both, depending on your exact situation. Like, I don't think the plot is end all and be all of storytelling. I mean, it's like I've said a couple of times now, it's about balance and striking that balance in a way that works for what it is you are trying to do. And for a story like this, like Tower of Memories, it makes sense to spend a lot of pages on world building bits and character building bits. Because that's just the story this is. This isn't a grand adventure that needs to be constantly going. It's... You know, hanging out with these people is literally the point. But I mean, that's also can be partially informed by my own views on the ideas of things like filler. Because I have my own definition that seems to be the less and less common definition of the word, at least as far as storytelling is concerned. And I mean, that's what happens when people from one walk of life steal words from another walk of life. Because, right, I grew up an anime fan, so my definition of filler was informed by growing up watching Naruto and One Piece and such. And if you have watched anime and you know that, you know true filler, I think. At least as far as I'm concerned. Because to me, time spent building the characters is not wasted time. Truly wasted time in storytelling is either focusing on stuff we already know, or, you know, just things happening that don't expand the world or expand our knowledge of it or expand our knowledge of the characters. Right? Like, because people say that a lot in storytelling critique circles, because Tara spends a lot of time on booktube, because of course she does. So whenever people like, you could tell the story in half this time, or with half these pages, or by cutting out this section or this other section, I always kind of want to challenge them to do it. Because sometimes I don't believe that statement. Like, because as much time as I spend doing not plot things in Tower of Memories, I don't think you could cut much of it without risking damaging certain things. Risking potential repercussions either immediately or later, right? Because I try to focus on characters that serve purposes, whether it be world building or character building, even if they're not directly plot related. Like, there are some characters that are not related to the plot in the slightest, but I also don't think you could tell the story without them, without risking a lot of potential damage. Or without, you know, sacrificing a lot of other stuff. Sort of here, right? My god, I would pay money to see someone try to tell a version of this story that's in less books, because I don't think you could. Not without drastically changing it, at least. Which is not my goal, obviously. I mean, I wrote it the way I've written it for a reason. Storytelling's hard. It is extraordinarily hard, and it is an art form, I think. It's not... Storytelling is not just words on a page. It's all of the moving parts. I should have put those down because I failed. But it's fine. That's because I'm only like half paying attention, to be honest. What am I doing? I'm in trouble. I don't know. I think that's everything. At least for tonight. Happy to answer any questions. Maybe I'll drum up some more talking points for next time. Episode 104 is shaping up nicely. Like, in general. Well, I mean, it's like half done. I have to finish it up. But we're at a really fun bit in Arc 3, which will be book 3. It's parent book, where we get to meet everybody's parents. Well, all the dragon student parents. And some other people, but... Oh, screw this. Yeah. What else is in here that I want to talk about? The bonus episode. Right, the bonus episode. At the end of book 2, there is a very long seeming, because it's like twice the length of an average chapter. Well, over twice the length of an average chapter at this point. And it's entirely from Vivian's perspective, and it's Vivian's POV of the very early episodes of first book. And I have that there because I think it solved some problems that came from unexpected changes to the story as I wrote too. And I think it kind of smooths over some facts and has its own set of implications, which I think is fun. But the universe is just like meh. I think for tonight. I think that's everything I want to talk about. Let's do everything right now. I don't know. I'll drum up some more talking points. Maybe. See how I feel. And let this play out. Because why not? This is a mess. Oh, that's a problem. Not a big problem, though. I have this under control. Harry knows what she's doing at all times. Let's use this. I'll use it on you. Use it again. Yes. Special some. as I can. Just because it's the only one that can use this card. Activate effect. Oh, that was a mistake. That's what happens when Tyler forgets to read the cards. Look, I never claimed I was great at this game. Fun fact. Seraphina's name means fire. Which, for those of you who may have known that, could be maybe a slight hint to the whole connection to the Hearth Coven. Episode 50's name is a joke. Well, I was like, this is a big deal. Let's use it. Let's celebrate, you know, having reached such a massive milestone by having fun. So I was like, I'm gonna Unmarried Men when we first learned about the Miss American, because it's just like, oh, it's fun. I think it's cute because it's like a little fun, and because they're the bad guys, and we finally learned who they are and kind of what they want. Writing the reader beware pages for both book 1 and book 2 were fun. Because it's just like, here's just a list of all of the terrible things I have in my story. And I read them because for some people, they do need those warnings, right? But for other people, they look at them and be like, oh, there's blood and gore and seances in this book? I want to read this one. Because I'm terrible. They're like, oh, you have undead creatures and blood and curses? Sign me up. It was taking forever. I don't know if you can hear me flipping through these pages. I know this mic is pretty sensitive. One of these days, I'm gonna talk about Journals of Fire, I think. I don't know if it'll be next stream, or when I do another one of these writing streams, or how often I'll do these writing streams. But we'll see. This was really just a test to see how I feel about if a new format will relieve some of the problems I had with the last one. Because the last format just was not working for me. So we'll see if this is better. And if you have opinions, feel free to share them. Obviously, I'm going to put this VOD on my YouTube channel because that's what I use it for primarily. So, yeah. I will... this one? Good. So, thank you all so much for being here and watching this. And, well, I'll see you all next time, whenever that is and whatever I'm doing. Don't know for sure what that'll be, though. Don't know if that'll be another Sentinel stream or if that'll be another one of these streams. Probably won't be another one of these. Will probably be Sentinels, but I have no idea when that's going to be. Admittedly, I didn't plan on doing this stream tonight. But Spin was all like, oh, I gotta cancel because stuff. So I was like, okay. I'll give this a test run. See how I feel about it. Anyway. That's enough rambling. Bye-bye. I will see you all next time.